It's been a long time since I did things I like, but it's the end of January, and I was doing a lot of travel, which meant I got to actually enjoy some culture on the airplanes. And so I want to recommend a couple of things that I like. I want to make this a regular feature of the show again, so I'm going to save some of these for next week because there are actually a fair number of things that I like. I'm gonna pick two. One is sort of against the grain, and one of them is not. So my against the grain pick for things that I like. Gladiator 2. Now, I know a lot of people were very down on Gladiator 2. I know. But it's fun. Okay, it's not as good as Gladiator 1 by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't really understand the extraordinary anger directed at Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2, sure, there weren't actual sharks in the Coliseum, but there were giant water battles in the Coliseum. That's an actual thing that actually happened. And sure, it's not historically accurate or anything, but it's Denzel at his most Denzel. It's basically Training Day Denzel. So you now have kind of a couple of modes of Denzel Washington, who's really the star of the show here. You have the mode of Denzel Washington, where he's a much more serious actor. He's doing things like Macbeth, which, by the way, I enjoyed, the Coen Brothers version. And there's the over-the-top Denzel Washington, lay out all the stops, just go for it. And that's this Denzel. The battle scenes are pretty good. It obviously misses Russell Crowe in a very serious way, but Russell Crowe died in Gladiator 1. Spoiler alert. So he was not coming back. And of course, it was never going to be Gladiator 1, because how could it be? With that said, it's enjoyable, and I really don't understand the critical hate for this film. So here's some of the preview.
I was owned. Now I will control an empire.
I will not waste another generation of young men for their vanity.
Strength and honor! This our own creature's heroes!
Hands on the mausoleum floor. Blood stains the Coliseum doors.
The gods have spoken!
Okay, so super historically inaccurate in terms of the actual emperors, the Roman emperors, right? There were emperors with the names of these people, and there was another emperor who did take over for them, but that's pretty much all that's historically accurate in this piece. The end of the movie is basically the Roman Empire is restored under the great democratic power of Lucius. That never happened, but it's fun anyway. Denzel is extremely Denzel, like audacious and loud and all the rest. Pedro Pascal plays himself. Basically, he's the same in all things. And I enjoy Pedro Pascal, but he is exactly the same actor in every single piece. And so he is in this as well. Connie Nielsen makes her comeback. She obviously reappears from number one. I enjoyed it. And it's like 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, 82% with the audience. Did about $461 million at the box office. And not a massive hit, but also not a giant miss from Ridley Scott. More enjoyable than much of Ridley Scott's work, to be fair. Okay, other things that I like. So here is one that is pretty widely accepted as good TV. That is the season 2 of Severance. So I really enjoy Severance. I think Severance is a really clever TV show. It's on Apple TV, for those who have not seen it. And Severance, the basic premise of it is that there is a company that has somehow created a procedure whereby they sever your work life from the rest of your life. So when you go into this office, it's almost this bizarre alternative world where you only live at the office and you have no connection with the outside world. You don't know anybody from the outside world. You have a different identity. And then in the outside world, you have your own life. So complete severance between your work life and your home life. Now, that sounds like it would just be sort of a normal sitcom or something. It isn't. It's a very weird show with all sorts of Lost type mysteries. It's one of those shows where you really have to trust the writers. And I have to admit, I've been burned by this before. I was a huge fan of the show Lost that was on ABC for 6 seasons. And I got burned beyond belief by Lost. I was super into it. I watched all the mysteries. I went and I interviewed Carlton Cuse. I was a Damon Lindelof guy. And they absolutely burned it to the ground in the last season. So that could happen with Severance. It could be they're setting up all these mysteries and they have no actual solves for the mysteries and the whole thing just falls apart. I always hope when a writer takes me a place where I'm not expecting that they know where they're going. Because I want to be along for the ride. I've seen so much TV and so many movies at this point that it is very difficult for me not to predict the ending of pretty much every show or movie within the first 15 minutes of the movie. That is not the case with Severance. It's very weird. It's clever. It's got some really good performances like across the board. The kind of homages to 1970s paranoia film are pretty obvious. Things like the parallax view. The theme to this show, like the musical theme to the show, is very obviously ripped off from a fantastic Francis Ford Coppola movie called The Conversation, which if you haven't seen it is great. Gene Hackman celebrated his 95th birthday this week, and The Conversation is one of his best movies. Super creepy and kind of terrifying. The theme to this is pretty obviously ripped off from that, if not consciously and certainly unconsciously. In any case, it is well worth the watch. Super clever. Again, I'm hoping that it goes somewhere interesting. Here's a little bit of the preview.
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Your work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen
And again,
to Miss Casey,
it's super weird. It's bizarre. It's not even possible for me to explain what's going on in this preview unless you've seen season 1. And it's like deliberately weird, deliberately strange, right? They're walking through office rooms filled with goats, and there are watermelon carve-outs of the person who's supposed to be like the godlike figure at the head of the corporation. You know, it's very strange. It's done by Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller's the producer on it. And Adam Scott is the star. Well produced, really good across the board. So totally worth the watch. Severance, season 2. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, did you know that someone becomes a victim of identity theft every 3 seconds? As we recognize Identity Theft Awareness Week, yeah, that's a thing, I want to talk about protecting what matters most, your identity. In today's digital world, your personal information passes through countless hands at medical offices, retailers, online services. With data breaches becoming increasingly common, it's more important than ever to stay protected. That's why I trust LifeLock to monitor hundreds of millions of data points each second, alerting you instantly to suspicious uses of your information. If identity theft does occur, you are in good hands. LifeLock's professional restoration specialists have years of experience and the expertise to resolve any identity theft issues, guaranteed or your money back. Their most comprehensive plan includes the $1 Million Protection Package, offering up to $3 million in coverage. Plus, their monitoring services work around the clock to help protect your credit cards, bank accounts, and personal information from being misused. One of my producers, Jess, currently uses LifeLock and has emphasized the peace of mind that comes with knowing their experts are always monitoring her sensitive information for any suspicious activity. So right now, save up to 40% off your first year at LifeLock.com/Ben. That's LifeLock.com/Ben to save up to 40%. Terms apply. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control. Okay, and I will give one book recommendation as well, since we're at the end of the month. So I spent some time on the audiobook app. I do that when I'm exercising, for example. I'm very excited, by the way, that the Apple audiobook app now turns all the way up to 3 times speed. So I go all the way up to the maximum, and that means I can churn out, an 18-hour book in 6 hours, which is awesome, which is great. Well, I recently got through Tom Holland's Dominion, How the Christian Revolution Remade the World. And the book is really quite fantastic. So I will say, I do enjoy Tom Holland's history podcast. The rest is history. Tom Holland and I, we have some conflicting politics, I would assume, but he's a really, really good writer, like a terrific writer, very evocative. He takes seriously religious claims, not that to the truth of, but like the actual seriousness with which religious people take religious claims. He doesn't mock them, which would be the easy way out for so many historians, especially writing about Judaism or Christianity. Right? What Tom Holland does instead is he tries to view history through the lens of the people who are living it, such that they actually take seriously the claims of miracles in Tours, for example, or take seriously the claims of Jesus' miracles in Dominion. So basically the entire premise of the book is that pretty much everything in our lives is shaped by the Christian world, which of course is absolutely true. I make much the same claim in my own book about the history of Western philosophy, The Right Side of History, which came out a few years ago. Dominion is specifically about Christian philosophy, and it is a history of church. Right? It's a history of the church going all the way back to the time of Jesus and forward through the so-called Dark Ages, which were not actually Dark Ages, forward into the medieval era, through the Reformation, and all the rest. Fascinatingly well written. It's I think, a great reminder to people who are secular of exactly how little their own values spring from the ether. There's this weird perception. I've said this 1,000 times in debates, whether it's with atheists like Alex O'Connor or whether it is with people who are sort of just secular liberals. I've said 1,000 times, the values that the left perceives, that the secular left perceives to be their values, are values that are rooted in Judeo-Christian tradition. I say Judeo-Christian because, of course, half of the Bible is the Old Testament, which is Jewish in origin. And again, even Christians have rejected the Marcion heresy, which suggests, of course, a complete divide between Jesus and Judaism. In any case, Christianity is the single greatest shaping factor in the history of the world in terms of how the world has been shaped politically, morally, theologically. That's just a fact. There's no way around it. Islam is a reaction to Christianity, right? The way that markets are done in China is a reaction to Christianity. Marxism is a reaction to Christianity, right? So many things that we take for granted as sort of just secular ideals or secular ideas. So many of those things are either reactions to or perversions of or quiet adoptions of Christian principles. And this is the point that Holland makes. So he goes through the history of the 20th century, and really the only anti-Christian movement that he notes is the Nazi movement, which was overtly directed against Christianity. He says that the Soviet Union was, of course, anti-Christian as well, but the point that he makes is that many of the roots of Marxism actually lie in sort of early church writings, meaning that Marxism ends up being a rejection of religion while trying to embody a sort of utopian viewpoint on what the world should look like in the best of all possible world. I think he takes the argument too far sometimes. I, for example, think that communism is an outright rejection of Christianity as opposed to a perversion of it. But those are sort of arguable sentiments. What is really fascinating about Dominion is tracing these lines of argument all the way through Christian history. And so that's why the book has become very popular in Christian circles, even though Tom Holland isn't by any stretch of the imagination like a right-wing Christian or anything like that. So check out the book, Dominion, How the Christian Revolution Remade the World, came out in 2019. Well, meanwhile, time for some things I hate. Yes, it's come back. Things I hate. All right, so the worst song in probably human history has now been released. It is titled, I kid you not, Fat, Juicy, and Wet. It is not, in fact, about a solid hamburger. It is, in fact, about what you would think that it would be about because it's a perverse rap/pop song by Bruno Mars. There has to be some excuse for why he would deign to do a number with Sexy Red, she of the Twice Chlamydia, who has on offer the lyrical genius of the colors of her anus. I'm not kidding. That's how she got famous. And that right there is a near rhyme that must at some point appear in one of her songs, Anus and Famous. In any case, Sexy Red leads this number. Bruno Mars decides to go along with all of this. So instead of the sort of soft romance that Bruno Mars is more typically known for, instead, the collab features some of the worst lyrics in human history that I would not even deign to actually explain. There are also surprising celebrity cameos from K-pop star Rosé and also Lady Gaga. And it's not sexual innuendo, it's just graphic descriptions of pornographic sexual activity. That's all it is. Like, it's not, there's no subtlety to it. There's no innuendo. It's just an almost biological description of pornography. It also happens to be terrible musically. So there's nothing redeeming about this song at all. I'm going to play you like 10 seconds of it just so that you understand how bad it is. Because this is what our pop culture has come to. From the Gershwin brothers to Sexy Red and Bruno Mars in just a couple of generations.
Hit it from the bottom, hit it from the top. Yeah. Pop go to because the type pop. Ooh, ooh, slide in and out, slide in and out, slide. I'ma throw it back, let me give you that.
I don't, so I've been asked by a producer to explain how much worse they can, I don't, like, can it? I mean, I suppose they could make it more violent, right? That would make it worse. But aside from that, I don't think it can get worse than this. I mean, the music is awful. Sexy Red has no flow. She's truly an awful rapper. I speak as a chart-topping rapper myself. She has no flow at all. She has no talent whatsoever. None. Zero talent. Like negative talent. Like active antipathy to talent in Sexy Red. But it just demonstrates that if you are a woman willing to sexualize yourself for money, then apparently the money's just waiting for you, and so is fame around the corner. I can't imagine why our culture is in such serious trouble. I swear to God, I cannot even read you these lyrics. It is not possible to read you these lyrics. They make Penthouse Forum look like Pilgrim's Progress. That's how bad these lyrics are. Oh my God, this makes Cardi B's WAP sound like Baby It's Cold Outside. Like it's so bad. It's so horrifyingly terrible. Like not, by the way, not even like sexy and transgressive. Just kind of off-putting and insane. It's what in the I wish I could read you a single line from it, but there's literally not a single line that you can read from it other than do it sexy, do it, which is the outro. That's literally the only, that is the only thing that you can read from this. Wow. And believe you me, I know how viral it would be if I read these lyrics, but I cannot bring myself to read you these lyrics. They're wow. You know what? I mean, the flood is coming. Get ready. God will not be mocked in this way. Oh boy. Are you tired of the lies and the twist of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.